Rain poured relentlessly over the quiet streets of a small Ohio town, turning the alleys into muddy rivers. Trash cans overflowed with soggy garbage, their contents scattered and plastered to the wet asphalt. Amid the gloom, a small figure staggered along the curb, struggling to keep his balance. It was a dog, or what remained of one. His belly was grotesquely swollen, stretched taut like a balloon ready to burst. Every step he took seemed impossible, legs trembling under the weight of malnutrition and disease. His fur, once likely golden or brown, was matted and dirty, stuck with grime and rainwater. Eyes sunken, pupils barely focused, he looked like he had been wandering these streets for weeks, maybe months. People passed without noticing. Some glanced briefly, shaking their heads. "Poor thing," one muttered, but kept walking. A few coughed, avoiding the smell of damp fur and filth. Others crossed the street entirely, unwilling to get involved. A few children peeked through car windows, curious but too afraid to approach. To most, he was invisible, another stray in a world that had no time for suffering. Then Emily appeared. She was young, early 20s, with brown hair tucked under a rain-soaked hood. She had just left work at a local bakery and was heading home, shoulders hunched against the cold. As she trudged through the rain, her eyes caught the small, staggering movement near the alley. Something about him made her stop mid-step. Perhaps it was the desperate wobble of his legs, or the pleading, helpless look in his eyes. Her chest tightened, heart hammering. Without thinking, she stepped closer. The dog froze for a moment as if sensing her attention. Then he tried to take another step, wobbling dangerously. Emily approached slowly, kneeling in the muddy street. "Hey there." "It's okay. It's okay," she murmured softly, extending a hand. His eyes flicked toward her, uncertain, frightened. Every muscle in his tiny frame tensed. Emily noticed the bloated belly first. It wasn't just malnutrition. It was severe, painful, a warning of danger she could barely comprehend. Her stomach turned. Ignoring the cold rain that soaked through her jacket, Emily crouched lower, moving slowly, speaking in soothing tones. The dog shivered violently, not just from cold, but from weakness, fear, and the exhaustion of survival. She stretched out both hands, letting him sniff her fingers. Hesitation lingered in his eyes, but hunger and exhaustion won over fear. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he edged closer, then lowered his trembling head, brushing her palms. Emily felt a pang of sorrow and urgency. He was thin everywhere else, legs, ribs, neck, but that belly, swollen and firm, was alarming. She had seen enough documentaries and read enough stories to know that it could be fatal. He might have bloating, worms, or internal blockage. He needed help, fast. Her mind raced. There was no one else around to notice him, no one to act. The thought of leaving him here, to fight the rain and streets alone, was unbearable. Gently, Emily wrapped her arms around him, careful not to press on his belly. He whimpered softly, pressing into her chest, the smallest trust beginning to form. His wet fur clung to her hands, cold and heavy. She adjusted him, murmuring encouragements. "It's okay, sweetie. I won't let anything happen to you." He seemed to respond, tiny tail flicking against her arms, though barely noticeable through the trembling. The connection was immediate, two beings meeting in a moment of mutual vulnerability. Emily glanced around. The street was empty. She needed a plan. Her car was a block away, and she had no blanket, no carrier, and no supplies. But she couldn't let him wander further. Carefully, she lifted him into her arms. He was lighter than expected, but every movement made her wince. His body was fragile, bones scraping under the matted fur. He whimpered, pressing closer, as if understanding she was a lifeline. She wrapped her jacket around him as best she could, holding him close to preserve warmth. Each step toward her car was slow and cautious. The rain had made the streets slippery, and her concern for him overrode any thought for herself. Every puddle they passed splashed against his damp fur. Every gust of wind made him shiver. Emily whispered encouragements, rubbing his back and stroking his head, trying to calm the fear that radiated from his small body. Reaching her car, she gently placed him on the passenger seat, covering him with her jacket. His breathing was shallow but steady. Emily's hands shook as she started the engine, mind racing through what to do next. A vet. She needed a vet immediately. She dialed the nearest clinic, explaining the emergency in a shaky voice. The receptionist responded calmly, asking her to bring him in as soon as possible. Emily nodded, her gaze never leaving him. Driving through the rain, Emily glanced at him frequently. Every time he twitched or whined softly, her heart clenched. She imagined the weeks, maybe months, he had endured alone, scavenging through garbage, hiding from humans, surviving pain and hunger with nothing but instinct. The thought made her resolve even stronger. This wasn't just about saving a dog. It was about giving life a chance, about proving that even the smallest gesture of care could matter. By the time she reached the clinic, Emily was soaked, exhausted, but determined. She carried him into the waiting room, his weight surprisingly heavy in her arms. The vet, a middle-aged man with calm eyes, immediately noticed the swelling and frailty. "We'll take him right away," he said, leading them into an examination room. Emily placed him gently on the table, rubbing his head and murmuring reassurances. He flinched at the bright lights, but stayed calm under her hands, trusting her in the first act of kindness he had known in weeks. The vet examined him carefully. "This is severe," he muttered, glancing at Emily. "We'll need tests. Blood work, X-rays, treatment for parasites. This could get serious quickly." Emily nodded, swallowing hard. She felt a lump in her throat, but she refused to cry. Not here, not yet. She reached down, stroking Biscuit's head, whispering, "You're safe now. I promise." He leaned into her touch, soft eyes blinking, fragile trust forming between them. As Emily left the clinic to handle paperwork, she thought about how one small decision, pausing on a rainy street, had completely altered her evening. And perhaps, she realized, it had altered her life forever. The first step had been taken. A weak, swollen dog, ignored by the world, had found a stranger willing to care. And the journey, fraught with uncertainty, hope, and the potential for life-saving miracles, was only beginning. The clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and worry. Emily followed the nurse down the narrow hallway, her jacket still damp from the rain. Biscuit trembled on the stainless steel table, weak legs barely holding his weight. Every shiver and soft whimper made her heart twist. The vet, Dr. Patterson, a tall man with gentle eyes and a calm demeanor, knelt beside the table. "We'll take good care of him," he said softly, as if reading Emily's fear. He began examining Biscuit, palpating the swollen belly with caution. Emily held his paw, whispering, "You're safe, Biscuit. I'll stay right here." The diagnosis was grim. Dr. Patterson explained carefully. The distended belly indicated severe bloating, likely caused by a combination of malnutrition, intestinal parasites, and internal fluid buildup. His weight was critically low, and he was dehydrated, with fragile bones protruding under thin, matted fur. "If we don't start treatment immediately," the vet said, "he could die within days, maybe hours. The swelling is putting pressure on his organs. We need tests, 4 fluids, and possibly surgery." Emily's chest tightened, panic threatening to overtake her resolve. She nodded, determination stealing her nerves. "Do whatever he needs," she said firmly. The nurses swarmed, drawing blood, inserting in 4, and carefully measuring doses of fluids. Emily watched every motion, fascinated and terrified. She had never been in an emergency like this. The smell of antiseptic and the quiet hum of machines felt surreal. Biscuit whimpered at the needle, but Emily stroked his head, murmuring reassurance. "It's okay, sweet boy. It's all okay." His trembling eased slightly under her touch. While Biscuit was stabilized on fluids, Dr. Patterson suggested running X-rays and additional blood work. Emily's stomach churned as the results confirmed his fragile condition. Parasites had weakened his body. His organs were stressed from malnutrition and dehydration. The vet's face was calm but serious. "He's lucky you found him when you did," he said. "Even a few hours' delay could have been fatal." Emily's hands shook. Lucky? No, she thought. Maybe this was more than luck. Maybe it was fate. Realizing the costs would be significant, Emily hesitated. She wasn't wealthy, and veterinary care was expensive. But looking at Biscuit's tired eyes, she couldn't walk away. Dr. Patterson suggested a solution. Emily could start a fundraiser online to cover immediate costs. "People are generous when they see the need," he said. Emily nodded, pulling out her phone as nurses tended to Biscuit. She uploaded his picture, wet, trembling, and swollen belly visible, with a short plea. "This little dog needs help. Please, don't let him die alone." Within minutes, responses trickled in. Some donations were small, but dozens of messages poured in. Words of encouragement, offers of supplies, even volunteer help. One woman offered to donate blankets. Another, soft food for delicate stomachs. Comments varied, some skeptical. A stray? Why bother? But Emily ignored the doubt. Each positive message gave her hope. Each dollar contributed toward Biscuit's survival. For the first time in days, she felt the possibility of hope. Biscuit's first meal under care was tiny, a soft, protein-rich slurry carefully spooned into his mouth. He licked slowly, hesitantly, as if testing whether it was safe. Emily cheered softly, whispering encouragements. "Yes, that's it. Good boy." Tears slid down her cheeks as he swallowed each mouthful. Even in his weakened state, she saw glimpses of his spirit. Slowly, he began to raise his head toward her touch, tail flicking faintly, signaling recognition and trust. The vet set up a feeding schedule, hydration plan, and medication regimen. Each step was crucial, delicate. Emily stayed at the clinic for hours, watching every small improvement. She observed Biscuit's breathing, counted each shallow inhale, stroked his fur, and whispered encouragement. Every twitch of his tail, every lick of her hand, became a victory. Volunteers from the online community began visiting, offering blankets and supplies, creating a small network of support around the frail dog. Even a local bakery provided soft bread, soaked in broth, to supplement his diet. By nightfall, Biscuit's condition had stabilized slightly, though he remained extremely weak. Emily stayed beside him, exhausted but determined. She thought about how easily the world had ignored him, how many people had passed without even noticing the tiny, suffering creature. The contrast between indifference and compassion struck her. Biscuit was fragile, but already teaching her lessons about patience, empathy, and the power of action. The vet warned Emily that the journey was far from over. Complications could arise at any moment. Bloating could worsen, infections could spread, and his body might reject treatment. Emily nodded, her resolve unshaken. "I'll do whatever it takes," she whispered to him. Biscuit, exhausted from the day, rested his head on her arm, eyes half closed, tail twitching faintly. Emily knew this night was the beginning, not the end. She would stay, fight, and witness every tiny victory. As she finally left the clinic to get a few hours of sleep, Emily felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. The streets of Ohio were quiet now, rain pounding softly on the roof, but she felt a sense of connection to Biscuit, unlike any other. This small dog, ignored by society and fighting for life, had found someone willing to act, to care, to hope. And she had found purpose in that act. In the early morning, before the city fully woke, Emily returned. Biscuit greeted her with faint whimpers, eyes brightening slightly at her arrival. The vet nodded encouragingly. Today, he said, was a step forward. The fight was not over, but survival was possible. Emily held Biscuit gently, whispering, "We're in this together, boy. You're not alone anymore." For the first time in his life, Biscuit had someone who would not abandon him, someone willing to fight against the odds. And for Emily, the journey had only begun, a journey that would test courage, compassion, and the extraordinary impact of a single act of kindness on a fragile, desperate life. By morning, Biscuit's story had begun to spread beyond the clinic walls. Emily, exhausted but resolute, had shared his plight on social media, posting photos of his swollen belly, trembling legs, and exhausted eyes. Within hours, her phone vibrated relentlessly with messages from strangers. Some offered donations. Others offered supplies, blankets, and soft food. A few volunteered their time, promising to help Emily feed, comfort, and care for him. Each message carried a mixture of hope and sorrow, as if everyone who read it could feel Biscuit's suffering. Emily felt a surge of determination. She wasn't alone anymore. News outlets picked up the story, and soon local papers featured his photo, calling him a little dog who could die alone. Readers from across the county reached out, touched by the small creature's desperate fight. The town, which had been indifferent for so long, suddenly awoke to the reality of Biscuit's suffering. Strangers arrived at the clinic, umbrellas in hand, offering gentle reassurance and small gifts, soft towels, nutritious treats, and carefully wrapped blankets. Volunteers guided Emily in ways she had never imagined, creating schedules for feeding, gentle exercise, and monitoring vitals. Emily marveled at the attention Biscuit received. People who had once walked past him without a second glance were now showing up with groceries, medicine, and encouragement. One elderly man, a retired teacher, brought a soft bed, insisting Biscuit deserved comfort while recovering. Children left handmade cards, scribbled with "Get well soon," and hearts drawn with crayons. Every small act reminded Emily that the world could still care, even for a creature so frail and abandoned. Biscuit, sensing the new energy around him, lifted his head slightly whenever someone approached. His tiny tail twitched, barely visible but unmistakable. Under Emily's guidance, volunteers helped feed him multiple small meals, designed to avoid stressing his weak stomach. She carefully observed him as he licked the soft mush slowly, encouraging him with whispers and gentle strokes. Even his faint attempts to stand, wobbling on fragile legs, were met with applause from those watching. Each step seemed monumental, a testament to his stubborn will to survive. Emily recorded everything, taking notes on his progress and sharing updates with the online community. People were glued to the story, inspired by his struggle, cheering each small victory. But not everything was easy. Biscuit's swollen belly was still a danger, and even minor setbacks caused panic. Once, during a brief nap, he twitched violently, whimpering in pain. Emily and a volunteer rushed to him, feeling his tense belly and shallow breathing. Panic tightened Emily's chest, but she remembered the vet's advice: remain calm, provide comfort, and monitor him carefully. She spoke softly, stroking his fur while another volunteer fetched water and soft food. Slowly, his breathing eased and his trembling decreased. Emily realized that patience, attention, and care were as vital as any medical treatment. Meanwhile, the community's involvement deepened. A local bakery donated soft bread soaked in broth, a small but nutritious supplement for Biscuit's diet. Volunteers took shifts sitting with him, speaking in gentle tones, rubbing his stiff legs, and coaxing him to drink water. Emily coordinated meticulously, creating charts for medications, fluid intake, and feeding schedules. Even people who had initially been skeptical, questioning why she should bother with just a stray, became invested. They saw transformation happening, not only in Biscuit's frail body, but in the hope and determination he inspired in them. The emotional impact was profound. Children who once feared dogs now approached with caution and wonder, learning empathy in real time. Adults who had become hardened by routine and indifference found themselves moved to action. Emily, herself exhausted from long nights and relentless worry, realized that Biscuit was more than a dog. He was a symbol of resilience, hope, and the power of kindness. Every wag of his faint tail, every blink of recognition in his eyes, reminded her why she had risked everything to help him. Even small moments were monumental. One afternoon, Biscuit lifted his head to follow Emily's voice. A volunteer clapped softly, and for the first time, he attempted to stand. His legs wobbled dangerously, and he collapsed after a few seconds, but the determination in his eyes was unmistakable. Emily leaned close, whispering encouragement. "Yes, you can. You're stronger than you think." The online community erupted with messages, celebrating the tiny milestone. It was a small victory, but for those who had watched his journey, it was a miracle unfolding in real time. Over the next week, the town continued to rally. Donations increased, bringing more supplies, medications, and food. Volunteers shared stories, photographs, and encouragement online, creating a network of support that spanned far beyond the clinic walls. Emily found herself coordinating logistics, assigning shifts, and updating social media, while still providing the personal care Biscuit desperately needed. Each day brought new challenges, but also new signs of life. His swollen belly softened slightly, his breathing steadied, and his eyes grew brighter, reflecting the care and attention surrounding him. Even Dr. Patterson expressed amazement. "He's responding well," he said one morning, examining Biscuit's improved condition. "It's clear he has a strong will to survive. Your care and the support of the community is making a real difference." Emily felt a mixture of pride and humility. She had saved him from the streets, but the collective effort of strangers had amplified her ability to make a difference. Biscuit's survival was no longer her burden alone. It had become a shared mission, binding the town together in compassion. By the end of the week, Biscuit's progress was undeniable. He attempted to stand longer, barked softly when Emily approached, and even wagged his tail in response to gentle pats. Volunteers took turns holding him, brushing his fur, and massaging stiff legs. The once forgotten stray, ignored and abandoned, had become a living symbol of hope. Emily realized that his journey was teaching her, as much as it was teaching the town, resilience, patience, and the profound impact of human kindness could change lives in unexpected ways. As the sun set over the small Ohio town, Biscuit lay on a soft blanket, exhausted but safe. Emily sat beside him, exhausted herself, yet filled with quiet triumph. The rain had stopped, leaving a glistening sheen on the streets, and a sense of calm settled over the clinic. For the first time in his life, Biscuit felt cared for, protected, and loved. And for Emily, the realization was clear. Saving one life had the power to awaken the hearts of many. The journey had only begun, but the community, once indifferent, was now awake. Days turned into nights, and Emily remained vigilant at the clinic, her eyes never leaving Biscuit. His fragile body had begun responding to treatment, though every twitch, every whimper, made her heart leap with anxiety. His swollen belly, once a balloon stretching his thin frame, had softened slightly under the careful diet and fluids administered by Dr. Patterson. The transformation was subtle, but Emily saw it, a sign that life had not abandoned him entirely. For the first time, hope flickered brighter than fear. The morning sun streamed through the clinic windows, illuminating Biscuit's damp, matted fur. He stirred, weakly lifting his head toward Emily. His eyes, once dull and distant, now flickered with recognition. A faint tail wag followed, almost imperceptible, yet it struck Emily like a miracle. She knelt beside him, whispering, "You're doing it. You're stronger than I ever imagined." Her fingers ran through his damp fur, gently massaging stiff legs that had not walked properly in months. Each touch carried reassurance and encouragement. Volunteers began arriving again, drawn by his progress and the ongoing social media updates. They brought soft blankets, gentle toys, and nutritious treats designed for weak, recovering dogs. Emily coordinated care meticulously. Small, frequent meals to avoid overloading his stomach, short, gentle walks to strengthen his legs, and constant monitoring for any sign of distress. Every movement, every nibble, became a milestone. The volunteers cheered softly when he lifted his head toward them or attempted to crawl a few steps. Small victories that felt monumental after weeks of near despair. The local news team returned to the clinic, filming Biscuit's slow progress. Children peered over shoulders, fascinated by the tiny creature who had captured the town's heart. Emily, guiding the volunteers and answering questions, realized that Biscuit had become more than a dog. He was a symbol of resilience, a testament to what collective care and unwavering dedication could achieve. His story was teaching the town empathy, responsibility, and the profound importance of noticing those society overlooks. Midday brought another test of Biscuit's strength. Dr. Patterson carefully monitored his hydration levels and administered a small dose of medication to treat lingering infections. Biscuit shivered slightly, discomfort evident, yet he remained calm under Emily's touch. "He's a fighter," Dr. Patterson murmured, adjusting the IV line. Emily nodded, stroking his head gently. Every subtle sign of improvement, the softening of his belly, the increase in energy, the glimmer in his eyes, felt like a miracle. Weeks of suffering had begun to yield results. As evening approached, Biscuit attempted something remarkable. Encouraged by Emily's voice and the gentle presence of volunteers, he rose to his feet. His legs wobbled dangerously, muscles cramped from long weeks of inactivity. Emily held his paw, guiding him carefully. He took a tentative step, then another, his tail flicking with increasing confidence. Volunteers clapped softly, careful not to startle him. Each step seemed monumental, a small miracle unfolding before their eyes. For Emily, it was more than progress. It was confirmation that life had not abandoned him, that her unwavering commitment was bearing fruit. Later, Emily watched as Biscuit attempted to interact with a soft plush toy. At first, he pawed at it clumsily, but soon he began nudging it with his nose, a faint but joyful bark escaping his lips. The sound, weak yet determined, echoed through the clinic. Volunteers exchanged awed glances. "He's playing," one whispered. "He's actually playing." Emily's chest tightened with emotion. After weeks of fear, despair, and uncertainty, this small act of joy marked a turning point. Biscuit was no longer just surviving. He was beginning to live. That night, Emily stayed beside him, exhausted but elated. She whispered softly, recounting every small milestone of the day. The steps, the wobbly walk, the playful nudge of the toy, and the faint wag of his tail. Biscuit rested his head on her arm, his breathing steady for the first time in weeks. Emily realized that this fragile life, once teetering on the edge, had found the strength to fight, not alone, but with the support of countless hands, hearts, and voices. Social media updates flooded in, celebrating his first real signs of recovery. Messages of hope and encouragement poured in from strangers across the country, inspired by his determination and resilience. Emily responded to each post, sharing images of his gentle progress, the softening of his belly, the tentative steps, and the twinkle of recognition in his eyes. Biscuit's journey had become a beacon of hope, proving that small acts of care could ripple into something extraordinary, touching lives far beyond the confines of the clinic. Over the next few days, his strength increased incrementally. He could now stand without support for short periods, his steps growing more confident. His appetite improved, and he eagerly licked the nutritious mush offered at each feeding. Emily guided him through short walks in the small clinic yard, praising each attempt, reassuring him with her voice and gentle touch. Volunteers watched, amazed at the transformation, documenting progress with photos and notes. Every small action became a celebration, proof that perseverance, patience, and compassion could create miracles. By the end of the week, Biscuit had achieved what once seemed impossible. His swollen belly was noticeably reduced, his breathing steadier, and his energy slowly returning. Emily reflected on the journey so far, the fear, the sleepless nights, the overwhelming responsibility, and the small, fragile victories. Biscuit had survived against the odds, not through luck alone, but through relentless care, expert guidance, and the collective compassion of a community that had once ignored him. As the clinic lights dimmed for the night, Emily sat beside Biscuit, holding his small body close. He rested his head on her lap, eyes half closed, tail flicking faintly in contentment. The first miracle had occurred. Life had been reclaimed from the brink of despair. Emily whispered, "This is just the beginning, Biscuit. We'll get stronger together." In that moment, she realized that every tear, every worry, every ounce of energy spent in his care had been worth it. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but hope now guided their path. Just as hope had begun to bloom, Biscuit faltered. It was a quiet morning at the clinic, sunlight spilling through the windows, casting warm beams on the floor. Emily was sitting beside him, stroking his damp, matted fur, when she noticed his breathing had become shallow, uneven. His once soft belly had suddenly grown tense again, a frightening reminder that his fragile body was still vulnerable. Panic gripped her chest like a vice. She gently prodded him, speaking softly, but his small whimpers betrayed the pain he was hiding. Dr. Patterson arrived moments later, frowning as he examined Biscuit's distended belly. "We have a complication," he said quietly. Emily's stomach sank. "What kind of complication?" she asked, her voice tight. The vet hesitated, then explained the worst-case scenario. Fluid had accumulated in his abdomen, and his organs were under severe stress. Immediate intervention was necessary, possibly surgery, or Biscuit could deteriorate rapidly. Emily's mind raced. She had been buoyed by progress, celebrating every step, every tail flick, but now fear returned with a vengeance. Volunteers gathered, sensing the tension. Some offered words of reassurance. Others' eyes widened with concern. Emily could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. She had been the one to bring Biscuit into safety, the one who had nurtured him through fragile days. Now she faced a decision. Let the experts handle him entirely, or remain by his side, offering comfort while they worked. Her instincts screamed to stay close. "I'll stay," she told Dr. Patterson firmly. "He needs me." Emily watched anxiously as Dr. Patterson and his team began preparations. The vet suggested contacting a specialist, someone experienced in critical canine care. Emily hesitated, unsure if she could trust a stranger with Biscuit's life. But desperation pushed her past doubt. Within an hour, a call came from Mr. Hawkins, a retired veterinary surgeon known for saving critically ill animals. Calm, confident, and compassionate, he promised he could help. But time was critical. Emily's hands shook as she spoke with him, explaining Biscuit's condition. Every second counted. Biscuit whined softly as Emily lifted him into her arms, carrying him toward the treatment area. The once quiet, gentle dog now trembled violently, sensing the danger around him. Emily whispered over and over, "It's okay, Biscuit. You're safe. I'm here." She pressed her cheek to his damp fur, drawing strength from the fragile trust they had built. Volunteers followed, bringing blankets and soft towels, helping ensure he remained calm and warm. The clinic was alive with urgency, the air thick with anticipation, fear, and hope. When Mr. Hawkins arrived, he moved with quiet authority, immediately assessing Biscuit. He gently examined the tense belly, palpating carefully to avoid pain. "We'll need to act carefully," he explained to Emily. "If we move too fast or too roughly, we could worsen his condition." Emily nodded, her heart racing. Watching the skilled stranger work, she realized that some lives require not just love, but expertise, someone capable of guiding recovery when hope hangs by a thread. As Mr. Hawkins adjusted 4 lines and monitored vital signs, Emily stayed close, stroking Biscuit's head and murmuring encouragement. His small body shivered violently at times, and Emily's heart broke with each tremor. She whispered, "I'm right here. You're going to make it. Just hold on." Her voice, steady despite the fear in her heart, seemed to calm him. The bond between them, forged through weeks of care, became a lifeline in this moment of crisis. Hours passed with tense vigilance. Biscuit responded slowly to medication and fluids, but his energy remained dangerously low. Emily refused to leave his side, holding him close during the most critical moments. Volunteers rotated shifts, checking vitals, offering comfort, and documenting every change. Social media followers, updated in real time, held their collective breath with Emily, praying for the tiny dog who had captured hearts across the county. Messages of encouragement poured in from strangers far and wide, a chorus of hope surrounding the fragile life in the clinic. Night fell, and Emily, exhausted yet resolute, refused to sleep. She sat beside Biscuit, holding his small paw in her hand. "You've come this far," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You can make it through this too. I won't leave you." Every shallow breath he took sent a wave of relief through her body. She understood that progress was never linear. Setbacks were part of survival. But the sight of him, so fragile yet alive, strengthened her determination. The following morning brought cautious optimism. Biscuit's breathing stabilized under Mr. Hawkins' expert care. Though his belly remained swollen, the immediate threat had passed. Emily allowed herself a brief sigh of relief. Though vigilance remained paramount, Mr. Hawkins explained the next steps: continued monitoring, careful feeding, and patience. Recovery would take longer than anticipated, and any mistake could undo progress. Emily nodded, mentally preparing herself for the marathon ahead. She had already walked a path filled with fear, hope, and sleepless nights. She would continue. Biscuit needed her. Volunteers returned, bringing fresh blankets and soft food. Emily organized care shifts, ensuring someone was always present. She took turns resting briefly, but returned quickly, unable to stay away from Biscuit's side. Each small movement, a tail flick, a soft lick, a blink of recognition, felt miraculous. The dog who had been abandoned, swollen, and near death was still fighting. Emily's determination, combined with the expertise of Mr. Hawkins and the support of the community, had created a fragile thread of survival. By the end of the week, Biscuit showed subtle signs of improvement. His belly was less tense, his breathing more consistent, and his strength gradually returning. Each small step forward was celebrated quietly, but with immense emotion. Emily reflected on the fragility of life, realizing that even the smallest setback could have been fatal. But she also understood that resilience, combined with expert care and unwavering support, could rewrite fate. Biscuit had survived the brink, a testament to patience, courage, and the power of love in action. The setback had shaken Emily, but it had also reinforced her commitment. She whispered softly to Biscuit as he rested in her lap, "You faced the worst, little one. We're not done yet. You're going to make it, I promise." His eyes blinked slowly, a tiny glimmer of trust shining through. Emily felt a deep swell of hope. Against all odds, Biscuit had survived the storm. And now, the real work of healing and transformation could continue. The next morning, Emily arrived at the clinic before sunrise, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee in a sense of anxious anticipation. Biscuit lay on a soft blanket, eyes half closed, breathing shallow but steady. The night had been tense. Mr. Hawkins had monitored him constantly, adjusting fluids, checking vitals, and carefully noting any subtle change in his condition. Emily approached quietly, speaking in her usual soft, soothing tone. "Good morning, Biscuit. We're going to get through this, I promise." His tail flicked faintly at her voice, a tiny spark of trust in his weakened body. Mr. Hawkins, calm and methodical, reviewed the treatment plan with Emily. "He's responding slowly, but positively," he said. "We need to continue careful feeding, hydration, and observation. He's fragile, so any sudden movement or diet change could set him back. Patience is our greatest tool." Emily nodded, absorbing every detail. She understood that this was more than care. It was a delicate orchestration of medicine, love, and expertise. For weeks, she had relied on hope. Now she also relied on skill. Gently, Mr. Hawkins examined Biscuit, palpating the previously tense belly with decades of practiced hands. Emily watched, amazed at his calm authority. Where she might have panicked or hesitated, the stranger moved with quiet precision, confident but gentle. Biscuit trembled slightly at first, then relaxed under the careful touch, sensing safety. Emily realized the profound difference expertise could make. Sometimes, saving a life required not just compassion but skill, intuition, and experience, qualities Mr. Hawkins possessed in abundance. After a thorough examination, Mr. Hawkins adjusted Biscuit's 4 fluids and carefully prepared a specialized feeding plan. Small, nutrient-dense portions would be administered slowly to avoid overtaxing his weakened digestive system. Emily assisted, carefully holding Biscuit, encouraging him as he ate. His tongue licked the food tentatively, and with increasing interest. Each swallow was a triumph, each wag of his faint tail a tiny victory. Volunteers watched, inspired by the small miracles unfolding before them. Even the clinic staff, accustomed to routine emergencies, felt a quiet awe at Biscuit's resilience. The day was filled with subtle triumphs. Biscuit lifted his head more frequently, followed Emily's voice with his eyes, and even attempted a tentative step when encouraged. Emily gently held him upright, supporting his legs while he wobbled forward. Each movement was met with soft applause from volunteers and whispered encouragement from Emily. She realized that healing wasn't just about medicine. It was about patience, confidence, and trust. Biscuit's fragile body needed reassurance as much as it needed nutrition and fluids. As the hours passed, Emily observed small but significant changes. Biscuit's breathing grew steadier, and the swelling in his belly decreased slightly. His eyes, once dull and fearful, now followed her with growing recognition. He leaned into her touch, nuzzling her hands and pressing close. It was as if he understood, even in his weakened state, that she had fought for him and that she would continue to do so. Emily's chest swelled with emotion. Weeks of anxiety and sleepless nights had culminated in this fragile moment of trust. Mr. Hawkins continued his meticulous care throughout the day, explaining each step to Emily. "Notice how he responds to gentle pressure on his legs and belly," he instructed. "Every reaction is a sign of improvement, even if subtle. Recovery isn't instant. It's a series of small victories." Emily watched closely, learning from his expertise. With each step, she understood that healing was both art and science, requiring patience, observation, and compassion. Biscuit's tiny victories were proof that the combination of human dedication and professional skill could create miracles. By afternoon, Biscuit showed signs of greater strength. He attempted to sit up on his own, wobbling but persistent. Emily helped him adjust, murmuring words of encouragement. Volunteers cheered softly, careful not to startle him. He sniffed at a soft toy brought by a child volunteer, pawing it gently with his weak front legs. A faint bark escaped him, small but full of determination. Emily's eyes filled with tears. This was more than progress. It was a transformation beginning to take shape. Biscuit was no longer just surviving. He was starting to live. Evening brought a quiet moment. Emily sat beside him, stroking his fur while Mr. Hawkins reviewed notes and treatment plans. Biscuit rested his head on her lap, tail flicking faintly, eyes half closed in trust. Emily whispered softly, recounting the day's small victories, the tentative steps, the gentle nuzzles, the soft bark. Each moment, she realized, was a testament to resilience, his, hers, and the collective effort surrounding him. The tiny dog, who had once been abandoned, swollen, and teetering on the edge of life, was beginning to reclaim his strength. Social media followers received updates that evening. Emily shared photos and notes detailing Biscuit's progress. A slight reduction in swelling, a tentative step taken with support, and his growing recognition of her voice and touch. Messages poured in from strangers, inspired by his resilience. Emily responded to each post, emphasizing that every small victory mattered, that patience and persistence were essential in any journey of recovery. Biscuit's story was spreading, teaching people across the country lessons of compassion, dedication, and the extraordinary impact of human care. Over the next few days, Biscuit's transformation accelerated. Mr. Hawkins' interventions combined with Emily's unwavering attention allowed him to gain strength steadily. He could now stand for longer periods without support, move more confidently, and even wag his tail intentionally. Emily marveled at his progress, realizing that he was learning to trust again, to respond to gestures of care with affection rather than fear. Volunteers documented every step, inspired by the remarkable turnaround they were witnessing. The bond between Emily and Biscuit deepened further. She had been his first line of care, the anchor in his storm, and now Mr. Hawkins' expert touch complemented her dedication. Every action, every stroke, every small meal reinforced trust and healing. Emily realized that sometimes survival depended on more than just love. It required knowledge, patience, and the willingness to accept help when needed. Biscuit's fragile body, once at the brink, was now a testament to that truth. By the end of the week, the changes were undeniable. Biscuit's swollen belly had reduced further, his energy improved, and his spirit shone through his eyes. He nuzzled volunteers, wagged his tail, and even barked softly, as if expressing gratitude for the lives that had touched his own. Emily held him close, whispering, "You've come so far, Biscuit. This is only the beginning. We'll keep going, together." She realized that his journey had transformed not only his life, but her own, instilling patience, resilience, and the understanding that even the smallest acts of care could create miracles. By the following week, Biscuit's transformation was remarkable. The once frail, swollen dog had gained strength in ways Emily had only dared to hope for. His legs, once wobbly and unreliable, now supported him with cautious confidence. His belly, soft and almost normal, reflected the healing wrought by careful nutrition, hydration, and expert medical intervention. Emily watched in awe as he lifted his head to sniff the air, ears twitching at every sound in the clinic. It was as though the world, once frightening and overwhelming, had begun to make sense again. The volunteers and clinic staff celebrated small victories with quiet smiles and gentle cheers. Every step Biscuit took, every wag of his tail, every tentative bark, became a symbol of resilience. Emily could see joy flickering in his eyes, a spark that had been absent for so long. She knelt beside him, her hand on his back, whispering, "You're doing it, Biscuit. You're coming back to life." He nuzzled her hand in response, pressing his head against her chest, as if to say, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Social media followers continued to track his progress. Emily posted photos of him exploring the small clinic yard, sniffing the grass, and cautiously interacting with toys and volunteers. Comments poured in from around the country. "He's a miracle." One read, "Thank you for saving him," said another. Emily smiled, touched by the outpouring of love. She realized that Biscuit's journey had become bigger than himself. He had inspired a community, a town, and even strangers thousands of miles away to believe in kindness, resilience, and the power of caring for the vulnerable. The real breakthrough came one afternoon when Emily introduced Biscuit to a soft ball, a simple toy meant to encourage movement and play. At first, he approached it cautiously, sniffing it with wide, uncertain eyes. Emily knelt beside him, guiding him gently, her voice soothing. "It's okay, Biscuit. It's just a toy. You can try." Tentatively, he nudged the ball with his nose. Then, with increasing curiosity, he pawed at it, sending it rolling across the blanket. His eyes lit up, and a faint bark escaped him, the first real, joyful sound in weeks. Emily laughed softly, tears pricking her eyes. This was more than a small victory. It was the awakening of joy. Volunteers gathered quietly to witness the moment. Biscuit chased the ball clumsily at first, and with growing confidence, learning to navigate his restored strength. Each wag of his tail, each playful pounce, was a triumph over the suffering he had endured. Emily watched, heart swelling with pride and relief. This small dog, who had been near death, was learning to enjoy life again, to trust in safety and love. It was a testament to the resilience of the spirit and to the profound impact one determined human could have on a fragile life. As days passed, Biscuit's playful personality emerged more fully. He began seeking Emily's attention, curling up beside her during breaks and leaning into her touch. He responded to gentle calls, barked softly when curious, and even initiated interaction with volunteers. Emily could see the spark of confidence returning, a lightness in his movements that had been absent for so long. Where fear and weakness once dominated, curiosity and courage now emerged. Each small step forward felt monumental, a confirmation that her relentless care had not been in vain. Emily also observed Biscuit interacting with other animals brought into the clinic for care. At first, he remained wary, keeping distance and retreating from any perceived threat. But gradually, he approached cautiously, sniffing other dogs and allowing gentle interactions. His social instincts, long suppressed by pain and fear, began to reawaken. Volunteers noted the transformation, capturing footage to share with the growing online community following his journey. The tiny, abandoned dog had evolved into a creature brimming with life, curiosity, and a newfound joy for the world. One morning, Emily watched Biscuit climb onto a soft blanket and roll playfully, chasing a small toy with unbridled enthusiasm. His energy had returned in waves, punctuated by brief naps and soft whimpers when tired. She laughed softly, kneeling beside him. "You're unstoppable, Biscuit. I knew you had it in you." He responded with a soft bark, tail wagging fiercely, as if acknowledging her words. Emily felt a deep swell of pride. This fragile life, once teetering on the edge, was now reclaiming its place in the world. The transformation was not without careful guidance. Emily continued monitoring his diet, fluids, and activity levels, ensuring that he did not overexert himself. Volunteers assisted, offering support and gentle encouragement. Dr. Patterson and Mr. Hawkins remained involved, overseeing his progress and providing guidance for continued recovery. Emily realized that healing was a combination of love, patience, expert intervention, and careful attention to detail. Biscuit's journey had required all these elements, and the result was undeniable. By the end of the week, Biscuit had fully regained the strength to walk confidently on his own. He explored the clinic yard, greeted volunteers with eager anticipation, and even initiated playful interactions with soft toys and treats. Emily watched him, tears streaming quietly down her face. He had not only survived, he had begun to thrive. The small dog with the swollen belly, once abandoned and near death, had discovered the joy of living, all because a stranger, a caring human, had chosen to intervene. The final moments of the day brought a quiet celebration. Emily held Biscuit close, whispering softly, recounting the journey from despair to joy. He rested his head on her shoulder, tail flicking in contentment, eyes bright and full of trust. Volunteers cheered softly, recording the moment, knowing that they had witnessed a transformation that would resonate far beyond the walls of the clinic. Biscuit had survived, healed, and rediscovered joy, a living testament to the power of compassion, patience, and unwavering care. As night fell, Emily gazed down at him, realizing that this journey had changed her as much as it had changed him. She had learned the weight of responsibility, the depth of resilience, and the extraordinary impact of a single act of kindness. Biscuit's recovery was not just a personal victory. It was a symbol of hope for everyone who had followed his journey, a reminder that even the most fragile life could be restored with care, expertise, and love. The sun rose over the small Ohio town, casting golden light across the streets and reflecting on the clinic windows. Inside, Biscuit stretched and yawned, his once swollen belly now soft and healthy. He trotted lightly across the room, ears perked, tail wagging with uncontainable excitement. Emily watched him with a mixture of awe and relief. The journey from near death to this moment had been long, exhausting, and filled with uncertainty, but now he radiated vitality, curiosity, and joy. He was no longer a fragile, abandoned creature. He was alive, thriving, and ready to embrace the world. The clinic buzzed with energy. Volunteers gathered to celebrate Biscuit's full recovery, bringing treats, toys, and blankets for the occasion. They laughed softly, sharing stories of the early days when he could barely lift his head or take a step. Emily recounted milestones, each swallow, each tentative step, every soft wag of his tail, as the volunteers listened, nodding and smiling. They had been part of a collective miracle, a transformation that transcended a single life. Biscuit had become a symbol of hope, perseverance, and the profound impact of human compassion. Emily knelt beside him, offering a favorite soft toy. Biscuit bounded toward it, nudging it with his nose, and rolling it across the floor in a game of pure delight. He barked lightly, chasing it with increasing confidence, eyes bright and alert. Emily laughed, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the contrast between the helpless dog she had first found and the vibrant creature before her. The journey had been arduous, but this moment, unrestrained joy, trust, and life itself made every challenge worthwhile. The local media arrived to capture the story's conclusion. Photographers snapped pictures of Biscuit leaping across the clinic yard, playing with volunteers. And resting beside Emily, the story of the little dog with the swollen belly, rescued by a determined stranger and nurtured back to health, spread quickly through social media and news outlets. Messages of admiration and congratulations flooded Emily's phone, highlighting the impact of compassion and persistence. Biscuit had not only survived, he had inspired a community and reminded the world of the profound difference one individual could make. Visitors arrived at the clinic, drawn by his story and eager to witness the transformation firsthand. Children laughed as Biscuit wagged his tail, gently nuzzling their hands, while adults marveled at his energy and resilience. Emily guided everyone, sharing lessons she had learned. Patience, careful attention, and unwavering care were as essential as medicine in fostering recovery. The community, once indifferent, had united in support, demonstrating that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple into life-changing outcomes. Biscuit's journey had become a testament to the power of collective action. In the late afternoon, Emily took Biscuit outside for a gentle walk through the nearby park. The sunlight dappled the grass, illuminating his sleek, recovered fur. He trotted confidently beside her, nose twitching at every scent, ears alert to every sound. Birds chirped above, leaves rustled in the wind, and Emily realized how much the world had healed along with him. Biscuit paused to chase a butterfly, spinning in joyful circles, and Emily laughed, tears spilling freely. This was the life she had envisioned for him, safe, healthy, and free to explore with trust and curiosity. During their walk, they encountered a young girl who had been following Biscuit's story online. Her eyes widened at the sight of him bounding across the grass. Emily smiled, explaining gently, "This is Biscuit. He was very sick, but he fought back, and now he's strong and happy." The girl reached out cautiously, and Biscuit approached, sniffing her hand before nudging it gently. A soft bark escaped him, and the girl's face lit up with joy. Emily realized that Biscuit's story wasn't just about survival. It was about inspiring empathy, courage, and love in everyone who encountered him. Back at the clinic, Emily and volunteers organized a small celebration. They had baked soft dog treats, brought flowers, and created a photo collage documenting Biscuit's journey, from swollen, trembling stray to confident, playful survivor. Emily gazed at the pictures, memories flooding back. The rainy night she found him, the tense hours at the clinic, the sleepless nights, and the milestones achieved one step at a time. Every tear, every moment of worry had led to this joyful outcome. Biscuit, once near death, now embodied hope, perseverance, and the transformative power of love. As evening fell, Emily held Biscuit close, whispering softly, "We made it, little one. You're going to have a beautiful life now." Biscuit nuzzled her gently, tail flicking in contentment. Volunteers gathered around, sharing stories, laughter, and gratitude for being part of something extraordinary. Emily realized that Biscuit's recovery had done more than save a dog's life. It had brought a town together, inspired strangers far and wide, and transformed hearts. Compassion, she thought, was a force more powerful than despair, capable of creating miracles in even the most fragile lives. That night, Emily set up a cozy bed for Biscuit in her home. He curled up, breathing steadily, eyes slowly closing and tail resting against her arm. She watched him, marveling at the incredible journey he had survived, from swollen, weak, and abandoned to vibrant, playful, and loved. She reflected on the countless people who had contributed, volunteers, donors, veterinarians, and strangers who had offered hope from afar. Biscuit had not only reclaimed his life, he had created a ripple effect of love and care that would be remembered for years to come. Emily whispered once more, pressing a gentle kiss to his fur. "Good night, Biscuit. Sleep well, little warrior. Tomorrow, the world is yours." Biscuit twitched slightly, resting his head against her chest, and Emily felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been long and filled with challenges, but every moment had led to this: life, joy, and hope restored. In saving him, she realized, she had also saved a part of herself, a belief in resilience, in kindness, and in the extraordinary power of compassion. And so, Biscuit's story ended where it had begun, in a human heart willing to act, to care, and to believe. The frail, swollen dog, once abandoned and near death, now thrived, his eyes bright, tail wagging, and spirit unbroken. Emily knew that his journey would inspire others, that kindness could transform lives, and that hope, no matter how fragile, could never be underestimated. Biscuit had survived, healed, and discovered joy, and in doing so, he had reminded the world that miracles are real, often found in the simplest acts of love.